We are, so you see two handouts today. The first one is normal, section 3, 3 trees growing. The second one is this. This is what I hope yours looks like in, I don't know, 3 months. So this is what a completed one might look like. You know, I can draw the colors, but you can personalize it. But the purpose of this, what I'm showing you is that over time, you're building a visual diagram of what it means to have all these different worldviews, right? So if you were to say, how does a naturalist look at humans, right? How does a naturalist look at humans? Well, you could maybe look down here and go, one of the main thinkers for naturalism was Charles Darwin. The way that they view man is X, Y, and Z, etc. Man is a machine, man is an animal, that kind of a thing. So over time, I hope that, you want to develop this, you'll write it in your handwriting, you'll do it in your way, but I want you to keep it and hold on to it. This is going to be a big part of what we do for the next couple months. So this is session 3, 3 trees growing. We're going to talk about those trees in just 3 trees in just a minute. Turn to Ecclesiastes 12, and I need somebody to read it for us. I need somebody to read it with passion. Ian, can you read it with passion? And can you read it loudly? 11 through 14. Good. So some of you might be wondering why read that passage this morning if we're going to talk about 3 different types of worldviews. Well, Ecclesiastes is kind of the heart of the wisdom literature. Solomon was biblically, God declared him the wisest of all men. I believe that's true, if for no other reason than the end of the book of Ecclesiastes. Solomon became a fool. If you know Solomon's story, right? So he was the son of Bathsheba and David. So right off the bat at birth, his birth is problematic, as the kids would say. And so even from birth, his story is one where, he was raised in a throne room, but his origins were humble, right? So kind of from 2 worlds. And then as he aged, as he grew up, he sought the Lord. He sought to obey the Lord, love the Lord. He asked for wisdom, and God gave it to him. And then God also gave him many other blessings. You continue to know his story. As he aged, he became very foolish. How did Solomon become very foolish? He indulged in really everything that the world could provide, right? But I think the primary one that most of us think about is the number of wives that he had, the number of wives and concubines, neither of which is an appropriate biblical response. And the Bible makes it clear that in that, he followed their gods. He followed their ways. So really, Solomon became quite foolish. But in his life, in part of his period where he was wise, he gives us Song of Solomon and the book of Ecclesiastes and parts of Proverbs. And, or maybe all of Proverbs. I think you may compile it. I need to look that up again. But Ecclesiastes has been called the book of philosophy in the Bible. It is truly philosophical. And we're going to spend a lot of time talking about philosophies of the world. Worldview really is a view of the world, which is to say it's a philosophy of the world. So where do we go to find a philosophy in the Bible? It's all throughout it. But a very concise one is the end of Ecclesiastes. Here's the conclusion of the matter. Solomon spent the entire book saying, I read every book, I listened to every man, I contemplated every season, I blah, blah, blah. Solomon said, I did all that. Here's the conclusion of the matter. Fear the Lord and keep his commandments. This is after him saying, human life is short, life is difficult, and on and on and on. The whole book is a beautiful meditation on what it means to be human and what it means to live in this world. And at the end of that, he still says, fear God and keep his commandments. So let's start with that. Today, I want to walk through this outline with you. If you do have questions, why don't you go ahead and throw that hand up as we go? It's got to be concise today because I have a lot of ground to cover. But if you have a question in a moment, go ahead and throw that hand up. Otherwise, we'll keep moving. and then we'll get to the end. I'll ask for more questions. All humans have fundamental questions about life. That doesn't mean you specifically have had to ask the question, but it is to say all humans in all times and in all places and all cultures. And especially thoughtful people who think about these things like life, death, what happens next, ask these questions. So you sitting there as a 15-year-old may not have asked these questions, but trust me, your parents have, your grandparents have, their grandparents have, all the way back to the first humans, Adam and Eve. So, fundamental questions that humans ask. Number one, what do you think goes there? Where do we come from? Where do we come from? What is the origin of life, of matter, of existence? We're going to talk about 3 different outcomes this morning to that question, really quickly. What would the naturalist say about where do we come from? What's the naturalist going to say? Evolution, Big Bang. Was it thoughtful? Was it designed? Is there a God behind it? To the naturalist, there is no God, yes? So how did we get here? What's the answer to a naturalist? The answer is an accident. They will use that word. They use it repeatedly. Life is an accident. This is hilarious to me. Worldviews should be consistent. When they're not consistent, we say they're inconsistent, and an unkind way of saying that is they're hypocritical. Now, I've heard it said that all humans are hypocritical, just some more than others. I think there is some truth to that. But when you say to a young person, the naturalistic worldview is all life is an accident, that's a big piece of their puzzle. And then the next thing you say is, your life has purpose. Is that consistent? Doesn't seem consistent to me at all. Life is an accident, your life has purpose. You just told me that all of life is an accident. You're also going to teach me in biology that it's survival of the fittest. So why don't I just punch you and take all your stuff? That's cool with you, right? Well, it doesn't matter if it's cool with you. You just told me that that's how life works. So, I'm going to beat you up, take your stuff. That's an inconsistent worldview. So, where do we come from? Question number 2. Why are we here? Why are we here? What is the purpose of life, of human existence? What's a transcendentalist? Let's say, what is transcendentalism? Transcendentalism is a fancy word to say the religions of the world, including the New Age religions, so many religions. Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, Shintoism, a lot of isms, down to the New Age movements, a lot of the cults. We put all these under transcendentalism because they broadly believe the same things. A transcendentalist believes in the transcendental, which is to say the spiritual realm, which is to say only. Okay? So if you ask the transcendentalist, why are we here? First of all, they're going to say ultimately here doesn't exist. Here is an illusion. But the further answer is you're here to work out yourself until you escape this illusionary realm and you go back where you came from. Spiritual realm, you go back. So that's the transcendentalist answer. So I'm giving you examples of these from different worldviews as we go. Third question that a lot of people ask, where do we go when we die? Where do we go when we die? Boy, that's been the great question of all humanity, right? The poems, the writers, the artists, the creators, the musicians, the theologians, the preachers, the charlatans, the snake oil salesmen, they all can tell you where we go when we die. I like this answer. I think it resonates with me. Only one has died and come back and can tell me. Now, you might say, well, Pastor Nate, some people have died and come back from the dead. Yeah, after 2 hours, 1 hour, 30 minutes, 6 hours. I don't necessarily trust their judgments. One has come back after being dead in the tomb 3 days and then spent 40 odd days with his followers. and with others, making himself known. That's a pretty convincing eyewitness of what happens after death. Also, we have a book that tells us what happens after death. So, but the question, where do we go when we die, is a fundamental question of humanity. Number 4, why is there suffering? Why is there suffering, pain, sorrow? This is one of the great questions of life. Why is there suffering? I am always amused when philosophers get in the room. I'm curious. Let's see by the show of hands. Have any of you ever gotten on YouTube and just watched debates between, say, a Christian and an atheist, or a Christian and a Muslim, or just a debate between two people? Raise your hand. Nice. Oh, that's very good. Quite a few of them. They're always worthwhile, always. And whether the Christian wins or loses the debate is not the point to me. I've seen great Christian debaters. I've seen terrible Christian debaters. I've seen great atheist debaters. I've seen terrible atheist debaters. The point to me is not to see who's the best at arguing. The point to me is to see which worldview holds up the best. Because you can watch a debate in which the Christian loses and still take something away from that in your faith journey, right? And you can watch one where the atheist wins and goes, that doesn't sound right at all. They won the debate, but this doesn't sound right, right? That's not tracking with me at all. But I encourage you to watch those. I encourage you to watch that kind of material. What's funny to me, the reason why I bring it up here is, you get those philosophers in a room, you get these two guys in a room, and they will always ask the question, why is there suffering? But they generally answer the question from a personal perspective. That's hilarious to me, right? Rarely will somebody on the debate stage say, why is there suffering? Here's why God is unfair, because a 2-year-old who's from Bangladesh is going to live a life of sorrow and die at 9. Rarely do they talk about that. Usually it's, my wife died of cancer, I was born with this, and it's all me-centered. Right, so here's the inverse of that question. What the philosophers are admitting is that they're seeing the world what? From their limited perspective. Their limited perspective. How does God see things? He sees it from his perspective, which is to say he sees all of it. So when we have scripture like, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose, is that from a limited perspective, or is that from God's perspective? Is that verse talking about it from God's perspective or ours? Do we always understand why we go through bad times? Do we always understand why we suffer? Did Job ever get an answer to why he suffered? No. In fact, God calls him on the carpet and puts pressure on him at the end of the book. So this idea that we understand suffering as much, and so therefore we can speak about it as much, that's a challenging question. And here's the inverse. Those same guys never ask the next question. Why is there pleasure? Humans take it for granted that we are supposed to experience pleasure and no pain. And I'm here to tell you, that is not the biblical story, and that is not the human story. Here's one reason why you should become a Christian. Here's one reason why you should become a Christian. I can think of 1,000, but here's one. The Christian story most lines up with reality. The Christian story most lines up with reality. The naturalist story doesn't, and the transcendentalist story doesn't. These are the big 3 worldviews. Christianity, the story of the Bible says, there is suffering and then you die. You know what good naturalists will tell you? There is suffering and then you die. On that we all agree. But what a Christian differs from a naturalist is we say there's a purpose to it, there's a meaning to it. And the naturalist says there's not any meaning to it. And then the next words out of their mouth is, but there's meaning to your life. We're consistent. Right? And we also ask the question, why is there pleasure? They assume pleasure is the default. We assume pleasure is just an aspect of human life. So when you have suffering, we don't say, where is God? Right? What does Job say? The Lord gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. That's the Christian worldview. The Lord gives me pleasure. The Lord gives me suffering. Blessed be the name of the Lord. So the Christian at least has a concept of pleasure and of pain. The naturalist thinks they have that all figured out, but they immediately assume that pleasure should be the default, suffering should never occur. We have an explanation for suffering, and we have a methodology of dealing through it. Did you ask? Okay. All right. So, why is there suffering? Why is there pleasure? Final question. Who determines, guesses? Who determines morality? Who determines morality? How does one define good or evil? Here's what's great. Certainly the three Abrahamic faiths, and the only one that I'm at all interested in defending is Christianity. Christianity makes it clear goodness and morality is revealed by God. We didn't come up with it. It came to us. Right? That is a clear, valuable distinction that is worth saying. So it's frustrating to me. A lot of times people will say, well, Christians are just like everybody else. They just came up with their own rules. That's one of the attacks, right? Christians just made up their own rules of morality. That's not what we believe at all. Now, if you want to have a debate with me about morality, if you want to have a debate with me about whatever, let's define terms, and you don't speak for me, right? So here's what Christians say. We've said this all along. We got it from our Jewish ancestors. God revealed to us his morality. So you need to learn the word reveal. Revelation. Reveal. Revelation is not just one book in the Bible. It's every book in the Bible. It's every verse in the Bible. We didn't create truth. We didn't create morality. We didn't create goodness. We didn't create rules. We didn't create laws. We declare that he revealed them to us. Get it? But the question remains, who determines it? Who determines morality? Because a lot of times what non-Christians will say, especially atheists will say, is they'll say, well, you're just defining it your way, and I'm defining it my way. And that's just two opinions, right? Two people come together, my truth, your truth. The phrase my truth did not exist 40 years ago, by the way. And only in the last 10 has that really taken off. Well, that's just my truth. Well, that's not even what the word means. Truth can't be personalized. That's not what the word truth means. So anyway, questions about this? Any comments or questions? And you got to be quick about the 6 fundamental questions that humans ask about life. Raise your hand if you've ever asked any of those questions before. Raise your hand. You've asked those questions? Good. Any questions about it? Questions about the question? 3 worldview lenses to see the world. Naturalism. Naturalism. We put this one first because Christianity is in the middle, left to right. Naturalism. The material world is all there was and all there ever will be. That's a famous quote. The material world is all there ever was and all there ever will be. Well, where did it all come from? It always was here. Well, how did it get here? It always was here. Well, what about before the Big Bang? There was enough material to create the Big Bang. Well, what happens when it all runs out? Do y'all understand that the universe is going through a state of entropy and entire galaxies are moving further and further apart every second? Are y'all aware of that? We are further apart from the nearest galaxy every second, and they're continuing to pull apart. The universe, as you imagine it, is pulling apart. So even distances that we hope to someday go, we will likely never be able to go. Simply, and this is hilarious to me, actually. If aliens show up tomorrow, that's accounted for in the Bible. I'm not worried about it. But I don't think it's likely that we're going to see aliens anytime soon. And it's not likely that they came from anywhere close. Because as we define closeness, there just really isn't closeness. And even to travel at faster than the speeds of light, it's my understanding mathematically it would require all the power of a sun to break the speed barrier for a very small amount of weight. And so the idea, now science fiction does it all the time, right? Science fiction goes from one galaxy to another, half the universe to the other, blah, blah, right? The science fiction does this all the time. But in the real world where physics apply, I don't think it's physically possible. Right? So I kind of got off on a tangent. That's what worldviews would do. But naturalism says the material world is all there is. Right? There's no spiritual realm whatsoever. So does the naturalist leave room for the concept of God? Yes or no?
No.
No. It's an interesting thing about naturalism. If you are a devout naturalist, and keep in mind, naturalism has become a religion. It really truly has. Every marker that you need in a religion, what do you need in a religion? You need a holy book, yes or no? Generally, yes. Do you need a religious leader to follow? Yes or no? Generally, yes. Do you need codified behavior? Behavior that is agreed upon? Yes or no? Yes. Do you need followers? Yes or no? Yes. Do you need a way to tell who's in the group and who's out of the group? Yes or no? Yes. Are you with me? All of those markers of a religion are a part of naturalism, including the holy books. I could list you dozens and dozens and dozens by a handful of men just in the last 30 years who have risen up the ranks to become the holy men of naturalism. Where was I going with that? I don't recall. That's the problem with me teaching worldview is I want to say it all at one time. It is a religion, yeah. I don't remember what else I was going with there. I was number 2. Transcendentalism. Oh, I was saying that naturalism doesn't even leave open the concept of God. That's a religious statement, right? For a naturalist to say, if a naturalist wants to say, I don't believe in God, that's fine. The Bible says he's a fool, but he can say it. But then the naturalist will often say, it's not possible for there to be a God. That's a belief statement. And belief statements are part of religious statements. Belief statements show faith. Belief statements don't have science to back them up. But many, 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 many naturalists will say, yeah, it's not possible for there to be a God. Logically, you would have to be God in order to prove that there is no God. It's a foolish statement to make, but they do it all the time. Transcendentalism. The material world is an illusion, and you are a God. Transcendentalism, as I said, is a broad category to put every religion that is transcendental under it, like Hinduism, Buddhism, Shintoism, New Age, etc. And they all have similarities. So we have no beliefs. We have the Abrahamic faith beliefs, the one God beliefs. Again, I'm not interested in defending Islam or Judaism. We're going to talk about Christianity. And then we have the transcendental faiths. These are the 3 largest worldviews on planet Earth. These are the 3. So if you learn them broadly, it will help you distinctly. Okay? So the transcendental beliefs say the material world is an illusion and you are a God. Why would Christians have a problem with that statement? The material world is an illusion and you are a God. I can think of 2 reasons. We would say you're not God.
That you only worship God alone.
Yeah, we would say that there is one God and you're not Him.
Right.
What's the other reason we would have a problem with this statement? The first part.
I worship.
Worship. That feels real to me. Right? So the naturalist says the natural world is all. This is all. This is it. It's all. The transcendentalism says this is an illusion. This is not even really here. You're just a sojourner on a journey. Your soul is figuring it out. And once your soul figures it out, you'll escape the wheel. You'll escape the prison. You'll escape the flesh. You'll escape whatever. You'll return to the Brahma, to the universal soul. You win. By the way, you cease to exist. People forget what the word nirvana means. Nirvana doesn't mean heaven. I think a lot of Westerners just say, oh, well, we say paradise, we say heaven, they say nirvana. No. We say paradise, we say heaven. Christians say New Jerusalem, New Earth. What does Revelation 22 say? We will see His face. He will be our God. We will be His people. What does a transcendentalist say? you cease to exist. As a drop of water is in the ocean, so you shall be. Tell me, if you take a dropper and drop a drop of water representing you, your soul, if you drop your soul back into that ocean, can you ever pull that soul back out of that ocean? Can you ever pull that drop back out of that ocean? No. Congratulations, you're now part of the ocean. And so for the transcendentalist, the desire, the goal, is to cease to exist. Well, isn't that a lot like naturalism? Naturalism says your life is an accident, go ahead and find purpose. The transcendentalism says your soul is all that matters, you're secretly a God, but you're also going to cease to exist. In both cases, what's the point of getting out of bed? In both cases, what's the point of accomplishing anything? It blows my mind. This seems like it might be a trick of Satan on humans. That transcendentalism and naturalism both lead to young people not desiring to live a life that glorifies God. So whether you teach a young person there is no God or you are God, there is no God or you are God, those both seem foolish and demonic to me. There is no God or you are God. There is no God or you are God. What does Christianity say? There is a God and you're not Him. There is a God, you're not Him. Right? Okay. 3, the roots of a worldview. The roots of a worldview. Every tree has a root system. As the root goes, so the tree goes. Can a tree grow if the roots are dead? No. If the roots are living, the tree can grow. In fact, if the tree is cut off or starts to die at the top, can the tree be saved if the roots are healthy? Yes. If you ever want to Google trees in the forest, you see some of the coolest trees that have either been fallen over by a storm, damaged, blah, blah, blah. And if the tree is fallen or damaged at the top, and what does the tree do if it's got healthy roots? It just starts growing new tree trunks, growing new branches, growing out and growing up. They're really cool if you like that kind of stuff. The roots of a worldview. A, answer the fundamental questions humans ask about life. As I said, every major worldview, including atheism, is an attempt to answer these root questions. And atheism, naturalism, is a comprehensive worldview. B, they attempt to be holistic. They attempt to answer all the questions, even questions they shouldn't answer. If you ever find an opinionated atheist, it's because they're religious. To which you should say, God bless, you're devout. Right? Thank you for being devout. I'm going to take that away and try to be more devout myself. But religions try to be holistic. They try to answer all the questions that a human might have. And so whether you're a naturalist, transcendentalist, or a Christian, you're attempting to answer all the questions. 3, they're concerned with meaning and ethics. That's why I say, if you have a teacher at your school who says, we're not going to talk about religion in here. Also, the world is a naturalistic world. By the way, I'm not even talking about a science class. I'm talking about like a history class, right? You got a history teacher who says, we're not going to talk about religion in here. By the way, naturalism is real. And so life is an accident. He's talking religiously in your class. So what did he just do? He just set parameters as the leader in the room. Here's what you're not going to do. We're not going to talk about religion. And then what does he do? He talks about religion from his perspective. Because naturalism doesn't make any of those claims at its core. It's the religious observers of it who do. Right? So, worldviews are concerned with meaning and ethics. You should start to learn to pick these out. If you're having a conversation with someone, whether you agree with them or disagree with it, listen for what they talk about when they talk about meaning and ethics. Listen to them. How are they talking about meaning and ethics? They will tell you if you listen. If they say, oh, this is my favorite movie. That's my favorite movie. I love this movie. Listen to them. They're telling you something about themselves. No one has a favorite movie except that the movie is meaningful to them. No one has a favorite movie except that the movie has a personal impact on that person's life. So listen. What is your favorite movie? Blah, blah, blah. What does it mean to you? What's important about it? So we all have these meanings and ethics in our lives, and these all come from the roots of a worldview. Fourth, they have figures at the center of them that speak to their principles. As I said, there are entire libraries devoted to books, videos, conversations, TED Talks, etc., written, spoken about by these leaders. And you know how to find them. You know where they are. They're online, they're in libraries, they're at the touch of your hand. And these leaders are speaking eloquently about these principles. And then finally, they have life-changing consequences if followed. They have life-changing consequences if followed. Ideas have consequences. This is one of the most important things you'll hear me say as we study worldview. Ideas have consequences. Someone tell me what you think that means. Ideas have consequences.
It can stand for something in a way also stand against.
Let's be practical. If I tell you that as an adult male, I can eat 6,000 calories a day because that's healthy, and I start eating 6,000 calories a day, what's going to happen to me? Anybody in here know how many calories an adult male is supposed to eat a day? Who said that? Good job. The number's between 2 and 2,500, but pastor points for knowing the number 2,000. 2,000, 2,500, average adult male. So if I'm eating 6,000 calories a day, not exercising, just living a normal American adult life, what's going to happen to me? Pound of fat is how many calories? 3,500 calories. 1 pound of human fat is 3,500 calories. 3,500 calories. I am eating 3,500 more than I'm supposed to. Is that right? Did I accidentally do that? I think I did. So how many pounds am I going to gain a day? I'm going to gain a pound of weight, a pound of fat a day. So if I do that for a year, I just imagined that. I would put 365 pounds on. If I eat 6,000 calories a day, it's really hard to eat 6,000 calories a day. If I ate 6,000 calories a day, a year later I'd be 300 pounds heavier. Are you with me? If I say to you, ideas have consequences, do you see that now? Okay, you give me an example.
You believe you drive the wrong lane.
Yeah, drive the left lane because I want to. This lane is also my lane. This lane is my lane, and also this lane is my lane. Does that idea have consequences? Yes. When your parents have said to you 10,000 times, get off the video game, stop watching TV, and study. Were they doing that to be cruel? Were they doing that because they hate you? Why were they doing that? Why were they saying that? Because if all you do is play video games and watch TV, what's the consequence of that?
You'll be lazy.
You'll be lazy, less productive, less trained, blah, blah, right? Socially isolated, because that's not real socialization. As some famous comedians have said, the internet's not real. Not a real place. Not a real place. You need physical. We were built for touch. This is another reason why I know transcendentalism is dumb. Because even though we now can live in a digital space, which is more like transcendentalism, you feel worse. You're less human in those spaces. You're less honest. You're less kind. You're less of everything good about humanity, and you're more of the worst parts of humanity in digital space. That's a fact. And I'm not saying that scientists are saying that. Social scientists are saying that. Here's how you know that your cell phone is a drug. This just floors me. Here's how you know social media in particular, video games and social media. Here's how you know the internet is a drug. Watch the latest tech giants. Watch them. I've seen them at TED Talks. I've seen them online. I've seen them in interviews. They're all Gen X. They're all in their 40s and 50s. And the reporter will ask them, oh, so you spent 20 years working on Facebook and this and that and the other. Yeah, video games. Yeah. Next question. Hey, so what is your child doing? Literally, all the ones that I see lately in the last 5 years especially. Oh, my kid's not on those spaces. My kid's not playing those games. My kid's not using this app. Wait. Your kid's not doing it. Oh, yeah. These things are terrible for kids. They're drug dealers. Drug dealers also don't let their kids do drugs. Drug dealers keep the drugs away from their kids. Drug dealers sell drugs to your kids, not their own kids. So just keep that in mind. All right. Ideas have, say it. Ideas have consequences. Every idea has a consequence. You read the Bible every day for an hour, you're going to be in a better place or a worse place? Arguably better? You're a Christ follower? I mean, come on. All things being equal, so they are. You could be better off. The fruits of a worldview. The fruits of a worldview. So roots of a tree make a tree, trees make fruit. These are the consequences. The fruits of a worldview are evident. I say this all the time. You've heard it many times. I see you and you see me. You see the worst parts of me, you see the best parts of me. I also see the worst parts of you and the best parts of you. Fruit is evident. Fruit is evident. Fruit is everywhere. I used to say this a lot. I haven't said it in a while. I should go back to saying it. Everything means something. Everything means something. Now, I didn't say everything means everything, and I didn't say nothing means everything. I said everything means something. It may mean something little, it may mean something big, but everything means something. Every decision you make, every action you take, everything you think, everything you do, it means something. You just need to be aware of that. When you talk the way you do, when you act the way you do, when you sit the way you do, when you arrive the way you do, who you talk to, how you talk to them, what you think, where you go, what you do, what you are, who you follow, those things all mean something. Because ideas have consequences and fruit are everywhere. They can be studied and interpreted. They can be judged and weighed, and they affect all of human life. Okay, we're almost out of time. Fields of worldview study. This is what we're going to spend the next 2 months plus on. We're going to plug in all of these fields on this map. So, theology. What about God? Theology is the question, what about God? Now keep in mind, you don't have to be religious, you still have opinions about God. You can't be human and not have opinions about God. And again, atheists have more opinions about God than a lot of religious people. I know atheists who are better evangelists than believers. I know atheists who are better evangelists than believers. They're passionate about their beliefs in there being no God. Philosophy, what is true and how do we know it? What is true and how do we know it? Ethics, how should we behave? How should we behave? Again, how you behave is a reflection of what you believe. Biology, what is the origin of life? Psychology, what is human nature? Sociology, what makes a society healthy? Law, what is the basis for law? Politics, what is the purpose of government? Economics, how should we use our and history, what is the meaning of the past? Let's do a little brainstorming here. Psychology. Let's pick psychology just for a moment. I'm okay if you give wrong answers. This is just an opportunity for us to kind of flesh this out a bit. If I were to say psychology, what is human nature? what would you say the naturalist answer is to that? What is human nature to a naturalist? Human nature to a naturalist. What is a man to a naturalist?
An animal.
Josh, say it louder.
An animal.
An animal. Do y'all agree with that? I agree with that. To a naturalist, a man is an animal. In fact, one of the first things you were taught in public school in a biology class is that man is one of the
Primates.
animals. Yeah, one of the primates. Primate. Not only is man one of the animals, but he's specifically in the family of primates. Blah blah blah. You can go. This was 15 years ago in the Natural Science Museum in D.C. 15 years ago when I went. When you walk in to the atrium, or a atrium, this is just my memory. There was a glass case, and it basically said, "This is your great 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 grandmother." And what it was a physical 3D model of not even an ape, not a monkey, not a primate. It was a rat. And the point that the museum was trying to make was, before we were monkeys, we were rats. And before we were rats, we were some type of fish. Now, this is what evolutionary naturalists believe. They don't just believe we went from monkey to man. They believe we went from amoeba to goo to tadpole to rat to monkey to man. I'm not a clever man. That seems like a lot of jumping species. That's a lot of jumping species. What does the Bible say about humans? Well, let's do that one last. What does transcendentalism say about humans? Just throw some guesses at me because you may not know. You may. We are gods. Let's put a little meat on that bone. What else are they going to say?
We're reincarnated.
Something's going on. We're doing this again and again and again. Yeah. What else?
Depending on what
There could be differences.
it's like in Buddhism, they basically this idea that we're like fundamentally not worth existing. Stop.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we said the goal is to stop existing, right? The goal is to stop existing. Here's how I'm going to say it. I agree with everything y'all said. We're trapped souls, right? We're trapped. Trapped souls. And our bodies are violent, right? Prisons. So even the ancient religion of Gnosticism is related to this transcendentalist ideal. So the naturalist says humans are what? Animals. The transcendentalist says what? Divine souls trapped in a human body. What's the Christian say? Made. Boy, that's a big word. Right? Made by a maker, immediately not in control. Made in the image of God. Did it say we were gods?
No.
No. So we're not here. We're somewhere, right? Okay, so naturalist says we're what? Animals. So to the naturalist, right? I've even seen PETA is a perfect example of the naturalist worldview. I told you the fruits of the worldview were everywhere. Driving down the interstate, you could have seen this. I have a picture of it. PETA's paid to have this billboard made. They were trying to make a point about how little it mattered to save babies' lives. And the billboard said, "A pig is a dog, is a cat, is a child. A pig is a dog, is a cat, is a child." Because to the naturalist worldview, all just matter. Doesn't matter. It's all just matter and it doesn't matter. It's the naturalist worldview. So naturalism thinks humans are way down here. Transcendentalism thinks we're way up here. Still has a low view of flesh. Still has a low view of what it means to be human. Where's Christianity? In the middle, perfectly balanced. Humans neither too high nor too low.
What is man if you are not?
What is man? And I was thinking about this morning, Josiah, even with the pavement, the sapphires in the pavement, right? What is, and in fact, I think it was in my manuscript. What is man? What is man, David says, that you are mindful of him? You made him a little lower than the angels, but crowned him with glory. Or as I like to say it, we're made from dirt, comma, in the image of God. And one thing I learned about Jesus, one thing I've learned about God, God loves dirt. God loves dirt. He breathes into us in Genesis. He puts his hands on us in a very loving, profound way. He breathes the spirit of life into us. He made us, he formed us, and then he became part of the experiment. Took on, John 1 says, took on flesh. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God, in verse 18, and the Word became sweaty, dirty, smelly. Not so bad being human after all. In fact, it's pretty cool. My body does amazing things. Even at my advanced age, my body does amazing things. My mind, my flesh, my fingernails that I still bite. I can still run, I can still jump. Remarkable gift. And it's not a prison. It's not something to be escaped from. In fact, here's how I know it's not a prison. Again, Christianity is balanced between the extremes of worldviews. Here's how I know it's not balanced. So naturalism says that none of this matters. Transcendentalism says that it's all an illusion. Christianity says God cares enough about your body and mine, he's actually going to bring them back and reconstitute them and make them glorified. Your body. Your physical body. Josh, that means 10,000 years from now, I will be able to recognize you because you will have the appearance of your current body. And that's just really cool to me. So I ought not try to escape it, and I ought not try to destroy it, and I ought not try to think too highly of it nor too lowly of it, et cetera, et cetera. Do you see that what we did was we just talked about one issue and looked at them from 3 different worldviews? Do you see that? So we have a lot of ground to cover. A lot of ground to cover. Let me finish this and I'll let y'all ask some questions. 3 questions to ask when thinking about worldview. 1, what does God say on the matter? Start there. What does God say on the matter? 2, does that matter to me? For many of you, the answer is no. And I'm telling you, you should go back and see the first question. And 3, what will you do about it? What will you do about it? Remember, worldviews have consequences. Ideas have consequences. And so whatever you think, that is how you will live. And that is the life that you will create. Okay, any questions before we go? Any questions or comments before we go? Yes, Stacey.
So for number 3 about the worldview, did you say that
Roots.
the root?
Roots. R-O-O-T-S. And 4 was fruits. Any other questions?
What does God say on the matter? So the matter, does that mean the Python?
All of it. Yeah, yeah. So if you're asking, if you have a worldview question, if you have a question about any kind of worldview, right? Sister, you and I are used to using this language. You and I would just say, we'll go to the Bible, right? That's what you and I would say. This is just a different way of saying it. So when we say, what does God say on the question? For a Christian, the answer is, well, what does the Bible say? Because God's word is going to be found in it. So this is just a different way of saying that. Yeah. Any other questions?